The story begins in Africa. Modern Homo sapiens emerged more than 200,000 years ago, under intense year-round sunlight. In these environments, ultraviolet radiation shaped the human body in fundamental ways. Skin darkened, hair thickened, and eyes filled with melanin. Brown eyes contain high concentrations of eumelanin, a pigment that absorbs ultraviolet light and reduces glare. This absorption protects the retina from cumulative light damage. In equatorial regions, this mattered. Eyes with low pigment are more sensitive to brightness and glare. Over long periods, they may be more vulnerable to UV-related stress. So for early humans, dark eyes were not aesthetic. They were functional. At this stage, there was no eye color diversity. Brown eyes were the default human condition. Around 60 to 70,000 years ago, humans began leaving Africa. They crossed the Arabian Peninsula. They followed coastlines into South Asia. They moved east into what would become China. And eventually, they reached Europe and the Americas. Every one of these migrations carried brown eyes. Brown eyes spread not because they were selected anew, but because they were already universal. As populations expanded, brown eyes expanded with them. Today, this history is still visible. In regions such as sub-Saharan Africa, East Asia, and among indigenous populations of the Americas, brown eyes remain nearly universal. In Southern Europe and the Middle East, they still dominate, often accounting for 60 to 70% of the population. This is not coincidence, it is inheritance. At the genetic level, brown eyes result from sustained melanin production in the iris. This process is primarily regulated by the OCA2 gene. Its activity is controlled by nearby regulatory regions within the HERC2 gene. When this system operates at full strength, melanin levels remain high and the iris appears brown. For tens of thousands of years, this genetic configuration defined what human eyes looked like. But evolution does not freeze traits in place. Deep in the Upper Paleolithic, mutations began to appear that reduced iris pigmentation. Ancient DNA now suggests that the genetic variants associated with blue eyes may trace back as far as 30 to 40,000 years ago. This is important. It means blue eyes did not suddenly appear in recent history. They existed as rare possibilities long before agriculture or civilization. But having a mutation is not the same as spreading it. For most of prehistory, these lighter eye variants remained uncommon. In northern and Baltic Europe, ultraviolet radiation is far lower than in Africa or the Mediterranean. Winters are long. Light is scarce. In these environments, the protective advantage of heavy melanin largely disappeared. Brown eyes were no longer necessary for survival. This does not mean they became harmful. It means they stopped being essential. In this context, lighter eye colors could persist. Some hypotheses suggest minor advantages in low-light environments. Others point to sexual selection, where rare traits gain social appeal. There is no strong evidence that blue eyes replaced brown eyes through natural selection. Instead, lighter eyes spread through a combination of genetic drift, demographic shifts, and social preference within relatively small populations. Brown eyes did not retreat. They simply lost numerical dominance in the far north. That is why today, in places like Finland and Estonia, brown eyes fall well below a quarter of the population. Globally, however, brown eyes remain dominant. One reason is genetic expression. In mixed populations, brown eye alleles are more likely to be visible. When individuals with different eye colors interbreed, brown eyes frequently persist across generations. This helps explain why brown eyes remain the most common eye color worldwide, despite the long existence of lighter eye mutations. Brown eyes are not uniform. They range from near black in parts of East Asia, to deep coffee tones in Africa, to warm amber and honey shades in the Middle East, South Asia, and Latin America. These are not different origins. They are variations in depth. Brown eyes watched the Ice Age recede. They saw the rise of agriculture. They witnessed the first cities, the first empires, the first maps. They crossed oceans, deserts, and mountain ranges. When you look into brown eyes today, you are looking at the most continuous visible trait in human history. Not rare, not exotic, but enduring. Ultimately, brown eyes did not take over the world by conquest. They became global because they were adaptable, resilient, and already present at every major expansion point in human history. They are the anchor trait of our species, a reminder that before diversity flourished, survival came first. And that no matter how far north we wandered, the memory of the sun still lives in our gaze. If you've made it this far, you already understand something important. History is not only written in ruins or books, it is written in bodies. If you want to keep exploring the deep past, hidden in everyday traits, this channel is your home. Subscribe to the History Hub, and if you have brown eyes, tell us your story. Where are you from? And how far did your ancestors travel to bring that color to you? Thanks for watching. The past lives in all of us. Sometimes you just have to look it in the eye.